What's good? What's good, YouTube? Stormy B Man, and I'm back. And this is the latest edition of the Chop Session Kung Fu Edition. This evening, we feature in a film from 1976. I earlier had said 1975, but forgive me, in some areas it was released that early, but it is noted for 1976. And this film is a little joint called The Hand of Death, also known under a couple of other titles. Um, being, being that a lot of films in Hong Kong were released in various regions of the world, sometimes they would try to align the titles with whatever was popular cinematically with films in certain regions. So, this film, Hand of Death, there was actually another film called Hand of Death made in 1972 starring Meng Fei, but this one happens to star Tan Tao Lang in the lead role, along with a few others that are very familiar, which we will get into in a moment. But the film was also known under the title Countdown in Kung Fu in some areas, also the Shaolin Men, and the Strike of Death. The latter two titles being Hong Kong regional titles. Films released in certain areas of Asia often change titles as well. Why, I have no idea. Most films were shot without sound, where various dialects would be dubbed in later. The mainland dialect was Mandarin. However, this film, they're speaking Cantonese. All right. So as I begin to talk about this, I want to say good evening to people who have joined me in the chat. And I'm going to acknowledge you all for coming out and spending a little time with Stormy B Man this evening. Appreciate you being out there. I want to say hello to Gil Coles. He's out there. Christopher Journay saying salute Stormy B. So is Shadow 979 saying salute Stormy B Man. Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, my brother. What's going on, Reggie? Glad to see you out there trying to keep up with some Kung Fu film talk. Ain't nothing wrong with that, brother. You know, little Kung Fu can take you a long way. A long way. J1 Pro is in the house. And Gigi has popped in with us. He said, what's good, Stormy B Man? What's happening with you, Gigi? And King Louis is out there. He says, salute family. What's going on, King Louis, brother? So, yeah, this film, The Hand of Death, is another one of those films that you can align as a revenge for the Shaolin family type fare, where the Shaolin Temple was being attacked, okay, and by rebel former Shaolin students. As the plot of the film goes, it reads as a typical Hong Kong Shaolin film, you know, and it talks about, you know, the anti-Manchu patriots in the 17th century. There was a lone Shaolin renegade named Shay, played by James Tien, who had defected to the Manchus, the armies who were suppressing the Chinese. Okay, and he led a group of patriots on the Shaolin Temple as they were excuse me, bent on overthrowing the Qing dynasty. So James Tien was the villain of this film. And many of you may be familiar with James Chin because he played in a number of Hong Kong films. He's pretty much noted for originally being in Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury. In that film, he played Shu Shane. You know, Shu Shane was Bruce Lee's character's cousin that he had come to Thailand to visit with and everything, and met a terrible fate in some ice at the famed ice factory, the dope ice factory, dope and ice, you know. So with that film, James Chin was touted as a star with Golden Harvest Studios, a new studio that had just started up in 1970 by Raymond Chow. And Raymond Chow started the Golden Harvest Studios after leaving Shaw Brothers, where he was Run Run Shaw's lead right-hand man. And the irony of that was that Run Run Shaw had taken on a mistress named Mona Fong. And Mona Fong was very much hands-on with Shaw Studios, even more so than Raymond Chow. And Mona Fong got very close to Run Run, Sir Run Run, as he would become to be known. And Chow kind of felt like three is a company because he had ambitions in the studio, but Mona was not going to allow him to get beyond the place of where he was, which is that he held a position of a executive producer within the studio. So he decided to defect from the Shaw Brothers studio and formed Golden Harvest Studios in the Kowloon area of Hong Kong, on a former studio called Cathay Studios. And it was an old textile mill where there was like lots of wood and things like that, you know, in the studios. And it was like little shanty towns. They were like little, I stopped short from calling them outhouses, but if you know what like a little mini tool shed was, just imagine it being built a little bit larger. A lot of their studios in their sound stages rather, look like sheds. And it's hard to believe that they produced the films that they did out of these little sheds there. But again, Tan Tao Lang being touted as the star, he's also known as Dorian Tan, okay? And Tan Tao Lang is a Korean martial artist, okay? And he specialized in, excuse me, he specialized in martial arts of Taekwondo, okay? He was born in Korea in 1947, and his parents, you know, his parents actually were from China, and they migrated to Korea. So he grew up, and studying the martial arts, he became a martial arts master. And for the Taekwondo that he taught, a lot of people don't know this, but another famous martial artist in the film industry, John Liu, or Lu Chao Lang, John Liu, the famous guy who could kick, who had the rubbery legs, he would always hold his leg up in the air, his right leg, and he'd do all these amazing kicks standing on one leg. Tan Tao Lang was his sifu. It was his master. And they were very much at the top of the martial arts world during the early to mid 70s, which is why they were called upon to star in martial art films, particularly after Bruce Lee passed away. You know, a lot of things revolve around Bruce Lee and his death because as he came on, he began to give Kung Fu a face internationally, whereas these films primarily thrived regionally. And so after his death, they sought out various realistic martial artists instead of guys who were actors who were trained martial arts on the set. And so Dorian Tan became one of those practitioners who was called to Hong Kong, and he made quite a few films in Hong Kong. And some of his films that he's famous for, like The Tattooed Dragon, this film, The Hand of Death, Shaolin Deadly Kicks, Death Duel of Kung Fu, Shaolin Invincibles, A Boxer's Adventure, Invincible Shaolin Kung Fu Legs. I could go on and on because Dorian Tan, he made approximately at least about 50 films or just under 50 films in the heyday of the martial art film. So as we go through what was taking place with this film, there were a couple of other noted stars that I'd like to mention who were a part of this film. And they are very familiar faces. We have the likes of Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung, and Yang Wei. Now, everyone is familiar with Jackie Chan. Jackie's still around, still making movies, still doing stunts, although he's cut back his workload tremendously because at his age, he could definitely not keep up what was going on in his younger days. But this film was actually made before Jackie became a film star himself. He was a noted stuntman and a secondary role player in films at this time when this film was made. And because of his expertise with weapons and acrobatic ability, he was hired by his big brother, Sammo Hung, and they were big brothers from the opera troupe of the Seven Little Fortunes, which is something that trained young Asian talent for the entertainment industry, jugglers, acrobats, martial artists, and these people that participated in the Seven Little Fortunes troupe would go on and help the industry behind the scenes and sometimes in front of the camera. And even though they were entitled the Seven Little Fortunes, it was far more than seven of them. But they would go out when they would perform as a troupe, seven at a time. And that's why they were nicknamed the Seven Little Fortunes. And Sammo was one of the elder students from the Fortunes. And some of the Ewan brothers were a part of the Fortunes as well. There was a very good film made documenting these gentlemen and their childhood experiences as part of the Seven Little Fortunes opera troupe called Painted Faces. Okay, and that might be a film that I do a review on as well, because Painted Faces tells the story of their upbringing in the opera troupe, but it really scaled back the hardships and the abuse that these young boys were put through, as some of them were sold to the Sifus who ran the troupe. Some of them were orphans, and some of them were just put through there because their families wanted them to have a way of life that they could perform in the industry. And they endured and incurred a lot of heavily dangerous and unfit circumstances that they went through being a part of this troupe. And a lot of them had injuries as young kids. We're talking about 6 years old, going up to about 12 or 13, 14 years old. They were all battered children, basically. And it was very unfortunate that they went through this. But on the positive side, which if you could think that there was a positive side, most of these men could perform athletic abilities and feats that was astronomical. It was like unbelievable that some of the things that they could do. And this ended up being what you were able to enjoy in the martial art film industry as the industry began to thrive from 1971 going forward. So that's what you saw from these guys. And the film was also directed by legendary action filmmaker John Woo. Now, most people remember John Woo in America for films like Face Off and Jean-Claude Van Damme's Hard Target and stuff like that. But John Woo did action films from the 70s. He did sword play films and then kung fu films early on. And he came up under famous legendary director Chang Che and was an assistant to Chang Che on some of his productions. And Golden Harvest Studios hired him to oversee this film and another film that was filmed a little bit earlier called Young Dragons, which starred Henry Yu Young. And you would know Henry Yu Young from action films like, what was it? Hong Kong Face Off. It was retitled, but it was also called Fist of the Double K. A few films where he co-starred with Cheng Sing. The bloody Fist, and a few others. But not to digress from this film. The Hand of Death was one of those film scripts that was kind of being held in regard, like they were hoping that Bruce Lee would make cross his plate, and he didn't get a chance to consider the film or whatever, but it was just one of those scripts that was being prepared that they were saying, like, okay, they were throwing this at him between the U.S. and Hong Kong. I'm going to go back to the chat for a second. Let's see what we got here. We got Drew Titan in the house. What's going on with you, Drew Titan? If you're still around, brother. Yeah, I'm chopping it up about my Kung Fu films tonight. And tonight's feature is The Hand of Death, also known as Countdown in Kung Fu. You know, Stormy B-Man has to get his Kung Fu in there from time to time. And there's been a growing audience listening out for my film reviews and recollections of these wonderful films that came through the Kung Fu craze of the early 70s. So that's what I'm doing tonight. So yeah, this is what I want to say. Oh, and also Drew mentions that James Tien was also the guy in Game of Death that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar killed before he fought Bruce Lee in that film. Right you are, sir. If I had a gong like Fanon, I'd give you a gong on that one, bro. A lot of people don't know who these guys are, which is why I've began to start putting their faces up on the screen so you guys can, know who I'm talking about. And you say, oh, yeah, I seen that guy in a few thousand Kung Fu flicks. I didn't know his name, but yeah. So I put their faces up there so you brothers and sisters, if they got sisters out there, could know who these personalities are from the industry. Ronald Finkley is in the building. He says, what's going on there? Well, hey, Ronald, glad to see you out there. Smash that like button, brothers and sisters, please. Drew Titan said, I saw the Tattooed Dragon at the movies, and Sammo Hung's size was deceptive. Absolutely, Drew. Sammo, who was actually the action choreographer in this film, and he also played one of the Ming soldiers in here. He was famous in this role because he wore these prosthetic buck teeth made himself look a little bit goofy, but he was a villain in this film, and a treacherous villain. And Sammo's martial arts expertise was very high. And he was the type of martial artist that he would actually go and study a martial art if it was going to be featured in a film, and he would come back to the set and teach it to the actors and actresses if they had no background in these so-called skills. And so that's when he would really rise to the top, because not only did he study these styles, he was able to execute the movements and teach the proper techniques on the set of his films. And they said that once he and Bruce Lee sparred behind the scenes in Golden Harvest Studios, and that Sammo pretty much held his own with Bruce, but Bruce was just a little bit too fast for him. But Sammo was still a dynamite martial artist in his own right, and he was known to have a fight or two in the streets. Sammo has a scar that he wears on his face from one of his famous fights in a nightclub. And I also heard that he had crossed paths with another Hong Kong action star, Chan Hua Man. And they didn't like each other. They didn't get along. And there's some other reasons why that took off between those two guys that maybe I'll discuss at another time. But one of the things that I say about this industry is that triads were very heavy behind the film industry. That's basically the Hong Kong mafia, okay? And when films made money, even when they didn't make money, the triads had their hands in the pots, because that was a great way to launder money through and out Asia and everything. And so a lot of these action stars worked for the triads as well, which is another long story. Okay. So Ronald Finkley says, it's real chop suey in this stream. I'm only a little good on Chinese stuff. Well, Ronald Finkley, stick around, brother, because you can learn. Stormy B-Man has got it for you. He's got the word. He's got the background, and he can give the information to you straight up here, man. That's why I do it every so often, because I don't want to just drown people with information. But I love the fact that people have been asking me, even in my other streams, about boxing. Stormy, when the next Kung Fu Chop session, man? And I say, okay, I have to come back and give it to you. But this week I was really lazy. I could have did this earlier in the week, but I was doing other things, listening to other streams, just being busy, living life. You know, yeah, Stormy got a life too, just like you hoes out there. I got a life too. And I thought I'd just, pop it on you this evening. For those who decide to come out, they come out. If you didn't come out, too bad you missed it. You understand? So, Ronald Finkley says he shared it on Twitter. Hey, thanks, bro. I'm not even on Twitter, but if you shared it to Twitter, that's great stuff. I don't mind you guys sharing my material, because I think that I'm getting my production quality up there where it's becoming respectable. And so if you decide to put something out there for me, I don't mind. You know what I mean? It's like, that's good stuff, man. That's good promotion. And I try to represent you brothers and sisters well out here with the LDBC. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I try to do, man. I try to keep it all real good for you. Keep it all real good for you. So, but yeah, as we talk more on this film, Tan Tao Lang being the hero of the film, as he's being brought into trying to challenge, he's being sent by the Shaolin Temple, by the abbot from the Shaolin Temple to bring down Shur, which is James Tien's character. He finds out that Shur is a proponent of the goose fist style, which is a hand style with strong arms and the arms are like they're stiff armed fighting, and when he punches with it or slaps or blocks or punches, it's very fierce. And he finds himself matched up against Sher early on, and he loses, and he's almost killed. But they're trying to torture him to get information out of him, and he's rescued by Jackie Chan, who's playing a kind of a loner who has ulterior motives for helping Tan's character to escape from the hands of the evil Mings. It turns out that Jackie has an older brother who died fighting against these Ming patriots, and so he wants to avenge. And it's at this point, as the film is rolling on, that they run across a swordsman who's also got an axe to grind against the evil Sher, played by Yang Wei. Yang Wei is known as, in this film, in the English soundtrack, they call him Zorro because he was an expert with the sword, you know. And he had a girlfriend that he liked to see at the whorehouse. And Sher liked to see the same girl at the whorehouse. So one night they were both there for the girl, and they got into a fight, and the girl was killed by Zorro's sword when he was trying to kill Sher with the sword. And Sher decided to let him live because he knew he would be miserable the rest of his life because he killed the woman he loved and everything by his own sword. So he laughed about that and just left old boy, who fell into a drunk, kind of like a drunken, pitiful part of himself. And when he heard that these guys were gathering up forces to go and attack Sher, you know, Zorro said, "I'm in." You know, he wanted to get his revenge on Sher. So, you know, you can't have a kung fu film without some revenge. You know what I'm saying? So it's like that's the whole underlying thing about a good kung fu film. It's going to be some avenging going on. So these guys form a team, and it's about 4 or 5 of them, including Jackie, you know, and they go about their business to bring down the evil Sher. You know, as these films were made, sometimes a film would be, you know, it could come across better than another film because people, they realize that it's the performances of the actors, you know, the things that they're able to do on film, the way that they're able to move, the fighting styles that they put on display, the action choreography, and the various stunts that they're able to pull off. It makes for the excitement. And that's why certain films are remembered more than others. I know that every time I talked about kung fu movies with guys, we would always laugh about the films when they running around in like blue jeans and platform shoes and stuff like that, and we like, man, we hate those movies because it's like they're not the same as the films when they're wearing their traditional robes and stuff like that. But those films with them running around, they call them modern day action films when they ran around in street clothes and stuff and platform shoes and stacks and stuff. It's like those films were always funny because you'd be figuring like in those elements they should be pulling out guns and stuff, but they still were doing kung fu, so it's tripped out. But although I will say that guns were, you know, because Hong Kong was under British colonialization, guns were outlawed, so you could inherit a stiff prison penalty for being caught with a firearm. Yeah. So let me go back to the chat. Ronald Finkley says, dude on the bottom right was a good dude or bad. I changed the photos up now. I think you talking about that picture of James Tien. That's he was playing the bad guy in the film, brother. That's James Tien. Ronald Finkley says, Buck Teeth. I think I remember him. And Walter Wilder says, and he was in the Bone Crushing Kid as the main villain also. Absolutely, Walter Wilder. James Chin was the bad guy in the Bone Crushing Kid. Another film down the line that I might get a chance to go over. Also a film I have in my collection. Off topic, Drew Titan says, kinda, have you covered Cynthia Rothrock yet? No, I have not gotten to Cynthia Rothrock, but I will, because she's an important factor in the Hong Kong film industry, because she became one of the foremost American female action stars over there, and she was every bit as good as any of the Hong Kong fighters over there. So Cynthia Rothrock, she's legendary in Hong Kong film action, and very much respected and saluted by the likes of Sammo, who worked with her on a couple of occasions. So no, I haven't got to Cynthia yet, but I will. China O'Brien and in the Arm of the Law, couple of her great ones, and also the Millionaires Express, where she was in there with a cast and host of a whole bunch of people. A very good film. So thanks, Drew, for asking that question, brother. I will be getting around to Cynthia Rothrock. And notice, I haven't even got to my favorite woman yet, Angela Mao. I have to do something on her, and I hope you guys share that one so she can see it. She resides somewhere near New Jersey and has a restaurant there, and she's retired, long retired, but she still looks great, and she still marvels at people coming in knowing who she was 40 plus years ago cinematically as a star of Hong Kong films. What a wonderful person she is. Walter Wilder says, Michael Chan caused a lot of problems in the 70s. He and Japanese star Kurata were caught with handguns by the Hong Kong police. Yeah, Walter Wilder, Chan Hua Man was a triad, man. He was a stone cold boss in the triads. Some people even say he knows what happened to Bruce Lee in real life. So it wouldn't surprise me. The guy has a history, and he doesn't hide it. He has played in his later career, when they moved away from action, from Hong Kong films of Kung Fu, when they got to action films, he used to play in a lot of triad movies. But he wanted to be a policeman, but he couldn't be a policeman because of his gang affiliation. So it's like he just said, well, I'll just roll with the gangs. And so he did do so. And he did so with the reputation of also a former professional kickboxer. He fought in the ring. He was an actual kickboxer back in the mid 70s, and the guy was awesome. He was really awesome. So yeah, that was what was up with Chan Hua Man. He was something, man. So as we move forward here, Gil Cole says that Drew Titan, Cynthia Rothrock was my sister's favorite action star. Walter Wilder says, in 1973, the Shaw Brothers released a movie called Sexy Killer. And actress Chang Pei was a Chinese version of Coffee, very violent and stylized. And Walter Wilder, they based a lot of their films on what was popular in America. So you could see a number of their films being shot and released, and you see familiar themes, whether it was from the Westerns, the Bond movies, because Hong Kong Shaw Brothers, they had a number of films that they did that took away from stereotypes from American productions. But I'm not talking about the Shaws right now, because the Shaws had a huge dominance over the industry, which is why you hear me talking about these films, because almost everybody that knows anything about Kung Fu films knows about Shaw Brothers films. I'm trying to take us and bring us through some of the other fare so that people can be familiar and understand that there is so much more than just that small window that you may have been exposed to. But I appreciate your comments there, brother, because you're on point with that. 100%. Derek Bailey says, salute Derek Bailey. He says, in New Jersey, Stormy, yeah, Angela Mao has a restaurant in New Jersey. I forget what part, but a good friend of mine, Kung Fu Bob O'Brien, told me that he visited her there, and he showed me photos and everything. She has a place in Jersey. Yeah, Derek Bailey, it's a Chinese restaurant. If we talk behind the scenes, maybe I'll get that information for you, and I could give you the restaurant's name, and you could stop by and give Angela a visit. My friend Kung Fu Bob O'Brien, when he saw her at the restaurant, he arrived on a perfect day, because guess who walked in? Ron Van Cleef walked in for a meal. And so it was Ron Van Cleef, Angela Mao, and there was someone else he mentioned from the Hong Kong film industry who was there with Ron Van Cleef. So it was like, dude, it was a moment in history that, like, you couldn't believe that all these people were in one spot at one time. And they all sat down. He said Angela put the tables together for them to sit down and have a big meal together so they wouldn't be separated. And they were able to take pictures and stuff like that. And it just turned into a wonderful occasion. It was awesome. So, yeah, my friend Kung Fu Bob O'Brien, you could go on the website and get his T-shirts. He does Shaolin Kung Fu T-shirts and stuff like that with all the different characters and films. I'll drop his information in my next episode. I don't know why I didn't think to do it before now, but he's a very good brother, does tremendous artwork. He does a lot of this artwork for these movie posters and stuff that you're seeing today. He done some awesome stuff. So that's Kung Fu Bob O'Brien. Okay. And Ronald Finkley says, I might watch a good Netflix Kung Fu movie. Hope I find one. Dude, there's so many out there you could find. You could find them, okay? They are out there. So, Gil Coles. All right. Let me take a moment out here to acknowledge my brother who did a wonderful thing here for me. Let's see. There's a lot of stuff going on. But one of the things I like to do is always acknowledge people who do good things for me. And right now, I want to say it's Gil Coles. He in the PayPal donation, and he asked the question, what's your favorite Kung Fu movie of all time? Well, Gil Coles, that's easy. Easy to say. My favorite Kung Fu film of all time is Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury. Okay, also known as The Chinese Connection. I feel that is the best film that showcased Bruce Lee in Chinese Kung Fu film type action. His other films were a little bit different. Big Boss, aka Fists of Fury, had its own type of action that was really raw and of the Hong Kong era at that time, because there was a different fight choreographer for that film. But after Bruce Lee made that film, he started having more of a say, and then eventually did his own choreography for his own films. So he had his own flavor and style. But the Chinese Connection, aka Fist of Fury, he was in the element amongst those others, and he showed his superiority in what he was able to bring in those type of films at that time. So it was sort of like Clint Eastwood and The Man with No Name. When he played that character, he carved out a niche for himself, that he became that lone gunman type guy that people just wanted to see. I kind of associate that with Bruce with the Kung Fu films. He had his own persona that even when people tried to imitate it, it paled in comparison, because he kick-started it. He did it. He was the originator of that. So a lot of respect for that. But yes, that's my favorite Bruce Lee film. And, that's it. So thank you again to Gil Coles, and shout out to you, brother, for your PayPal donation. I appreciate you. Derek Bailey says, I was going to ask that Stormy about him being a professional fighter. Walter Wilder says, check out his tattoos in Super Ninja. He also released a movie called The Club that was loosely based on his life. Yes, I'm very aware of The Club. I actually have it in a queue because I was going to purchase the DVD of it, and I just didn't get around to doing it yet. But I'm very aware of The Club, Walter Wilder. Thanks again, brother. Walter Wilder, you got a little bit of background out there too, man. Don't be trying to sit back there like you just throwing that stuff out there casually. If you know your stuff, you know your stuff, brother. And if you know your stuff, then you know I ain't BSing out here too. You understand? So I appreciate you, man. I ain't no hater. I'm a supporter. Okay? Ricky Samuel says, I'm in New Jersey every day. Well, stop by and see Angela, bro. She's there. Derek Bailey says, cool, Stormy. Drew Titan says, have you played the independent game, Shaolin versus Wu-Tang? All the popular Kung Fu characters are in the game. No, Drew, I haven't played that game, but I've heard of it. Is it pretty cool? Because I'm not really a gamer, but I would like to try my hand at something like that once or twice, with something, because it's Kung Fu based, of course. Dreezy KO says Jackie Chan was cold with that spear. Yeah, the lance. He used that weapon very well in the film, but understand that the action choreography was by Sammo, so it's Sammo's choreography that made Jackie look good. He knew what Jackie's strengths were because they had such a long history together, being a part of the Seven Little Fortunes. But if you want to see some excellent spear work and excellent sword work, check out The Odd Couple, starring Sammo and Lau Cha-yang. Okay, Lu Cha-yang's young brother. It is an absolutely excellent weapon film where you see these two guys using the two weapons, and they use both weapons equally. Sammo can use the spear as well as sword, and vice versa for Lu Cha-yang. It's an excellent film. I remember the first time I saw it, which was around the mid-90s. Okay, my jaw was on the floor watching the choreography in that film. And there's a guest appearance by Beardy in there also. Liang Chao Yan. He's playing a villain in there. Awesome. Good film. Dreezy KO says, Two Champions of Shaolin is on Netflix. When that dude did the flying kick and got his nuts ripped off, laugh out loud. Yeah, again, Dreezy KO, you guys are talking about Shaw Brothers movies, man. Why don't you check out this film that I'm recommending tonight, this Hand of Death. I guarantee you will enjoy it. And Hand of Death is on, it may not be on Netflix. It might be. I'm not sure. I haven't checked. But I do know it's on Amazon Prime because I saw it on there just a few days ago. So, also going back a couple of comments, Ronald Finkley says, found it. Cool, Dreezy KO. Appreciate it. Mahari Nation Sports Podcast says, "What's good, Stormy B, man? What's good with you, Mahari, man? I'm out here talking about Kung Fu movies again, brother. That's what I'm doing. Talking Kung Fu." Walter Wilder says, "Spaghetti westerns and Kung Fu films have a cross-pollination and use the same musical style, a.k.a. Mars Villa." Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And it's like that, you know. They're similar in thematics because you have to justify the action for both films, the gunplay in the westerns and the kung fu and martial arts in kung fu films. You have to justify why these characters are getting into these predicaments and are solving their problems in this physical manner. In westerns with their guns, the shoot 'em ups, and in kung fu films with their weapons or their hands and foot styles. So that's what it is. And if you find people typically like westerns, they could enjoy a good kung fu film. It has to be a good one though. But because some of the kung fu films are very subpar, the dubbing is awful, and it takes away from a person who won't allow themselves just to dummy down and wait for that action. That's why the films that I recommend are typically something that even a layman or a casual observer can sit down and watch these films. I'm very confident in that when I give my selections. I am not going to give you, even though I love some of the hokey, what we call basher films, where they just punch, kick, and it's the loud sound effects, and the guys are fighting for 30 minutes and stuff like that. I love those films. They're funny. They're like comic books to me. You understand? But as far as recommending that type of fare, talking to a general audience, I'm going to try to reel you in with fare that is more palatable for your tongue, for what can hold your interest at least for 90 minutes. You understand? So that's how I do it. And I think that's a great consideration to do that for you guys. Because I'm not just going to throw some garbage at you. You know what I mean? So as we talk about these films, just know that, you know, I try my best to give you, you know, the good cut of what's to be considered about the films. Walter Wilder says, "Thanks, Brother Storm." You're welcome, Walter Wilder. Appreciate you, man. And please come back and hear more of these Kung Fu Chop sessions with me, because I'll talk about these films for about an hour and give you a little background on them, on the people who played in them and stuff like that. And I, you know, if that's what your interest is, I think you found a home. And on my channel, I've already done several reviews. So you could go and look through the video listings and see some of the other chop sessions that I've done on Kung Fu films. I think I've done about 5 reviews so far, 5 or 6. So this is probably number 6. So please do it. You know, enjoy them. Drew Titan says, "Everyone peep this game. This is hot." And he dropped a link in there. God's Boxing Corner says, "Salute Stormy in chat." Salute to you, God's Boxing Corner. He says also, Netflix seems, Derek Bailey says, Netflix seems to have mostly Shaw Brothers films when it comes to older Kung Fu movies. And Ronald Fingley also says, I see a couple of good ones on Netflix, checking them out. Dreezy KO says, "I seen this movie on YouTube called Sun Dragon. Looks like they had a black guy in the movie. Have you heard of it?" Yes, I have. Sun Dragon is starring Billy Chong and what's his name? Carl shucks, forgive me. I'm sorry, I'm having a brain fart at the moment. But Sun Dragon was with Billy Chong, and it was a independently made film where I think it was shot in Arizona. And Carl Scott, I'm sorry, I was trying to remember the brother's name. Carl Scott and Billy Chong, they played in that film together. Carl Scott is a brother out there. I'm actually friends with Carl Scott on Facebook, you know, but I haven't been on Facebook in a year. But Carl Scott is a brother that played in martial art films in the mid to late 70s, early 80s, and is a very good martial artist. And he played in films with Bruce Lee. He played in there with Sammo. He played in there with Billy Chong, and was very respected for his martial arts abilities. So yes, I remember that. I remember that brother. Mark Wunderlich is in there. He says, salute from Utah. What's going on with you, Mark Wunderlich, man? Glad to see you again, brother. Another one of my regulars on the channel here. Stop by to listen to Stormy B, man, talk about some Kung Fu. That's all right, man. I appreciate you. I really do, brother. I appreciate you. Let's see. Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens says, what attracted black folks of the 60s and 70s to these Kung Fu films? As a kid in the early 80s, I swore every older cat knew karate. What led us to being captivated by these Chinese films? Yeah, Reggie, it was a part of culture, man. It was something new that was introduced, and it didn't have nothing to do with the man. You know what I'm saying? It came from somewhere else. And I'll tell you something. People enjoy something that comes from a place of unfamiliarity as long as they're introduced to it in a friendly manner, if it's not thrust upon them or forced upon them or something like that. You know what I mean? And culturally, Asia was closed. You know, Mao Zedong and Richard Nixon, they talked in the early 70s, and they came together, and the gates of China was open to the U.S. for the first time in many, many, many years. And with that came a lot of art, a lot of culture, food, things like that. And Kung Fu films were a part of that. So it was like a wave. It came in during that particular time. And that's how people got introduced to it. And there was a time that Asians would not teach non-Asians martial arts. So when that rush came through in the 70s, martial arts teachings also became a part of that. So it was just the world opening up culturally, basically, at that time, Reggie. That's what that was about. Ricky Samuel says, I would love to. I had the honor of meeting and sitting down with Grandmaster William Chung some years ago. Oh, that's excellent, man. He's been around a long time and also a good friend of Bruce Lee. Let's see. Walter Wilder says, the lone Chinese boxer and the lone gunman Sabata with Lee Van Cleef and Lone Wolf and Cub in Edo, Japan. Listen, Walter Wilder, I did a review chop session on my last one was Lone Wolf and Cub, brother, Shogun Assassin. So please go back and check it out and email me at intheeyeofthestorm4 at Gmail, you know, and let me know what you thought of it, of that covering that film, man, because I enjoyed that chop session. It was hot. I thought it was pretty good. Let's see who we got here. Uh, we got Hustler Slim has fell in the building. What's going on with you, Hustler Slim? He says, salute, can't really interact on the road, but I'm listening. I appreciate that, Hustler Slim. Thank you for checking in, brother. And if you hit that like button, thank you for your support, man. I appreciate that, bro. I'm glad you're listening. And Walter Wilder said, Carl Scott. Yeah, I find it came to me, Carl Scott. Thank you, Walter Wilder. Walter Wilder is out there, y'all. He mixing in amongst y'all, but that guy know his kung fu stuff, I'm telling you. He might even be somebody. Walter Wilder might not be the real name. So he's out here spying, making sure Stormy B-Man giving it to you straight. And that's okay, because that's the only way I know how to give it. You understand? I ain't going to try to give you no garbage, man. I'm going to try to give you the real deal, just like Holyfield. You know what I'm saying? Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens says, at Ronald Finkley, man, I had an uncle who a fool about karate and started shit with folks. He was on a bike gang in LA and used to use a chain on folks. Yeah, I'm telling you, Reggie, brothers from the 70s, man. I'm talking about, like, if you was 18 to 22 from 1972 coming forward, you was a dangerous brother by the time the 80s rolled around, because you had the Black Panther movement and the civil rights and also kung fu to mix in with you. Man, you will be a dangerous brother after that. I'm telling you. Walter Wilder says, a good basher is Corrado the Hong Kong Cat with Chung Lee. Yeah, that's one of the ones that I'm going to work my way around to, because it's significant as a basher in the industry. Very much so, Walter Wilder. Drew Titan says, I used to go to all the old Kung Fu flicks on 42nd Street back in the day. Grindhouse features. Yeah, man. There's a lot of brothers out there on your way, Drew, who went there. You know, a lot of brothers. Some even here on the YouTube community, the boxing community, man. It's like that was the place, 42nd in your area. Here in Chicago, we had a place that's downtown Chicago, man. A 4-block radius where all the movies used to play, and we used to see them movies, 3 of them for $1.75, $1.50, something like that, you know. So Miss Boxing says, peace at Stormy B, man. What's going on with you, sister? How you doing? She says, peace to the chat. Ronald Finkley says, I only knew one brother to really pull it off in my neighborhood. He used to spearfish and walk around with the karate shoes and the afro. He was cool. Man, we had one of them in our neighborhood too, bro. It was like Bruce Leroy from The Last Dragon. You know, it's like there was always, in every major city, in every ghetto, there was a brother walking around that everybody referred to as Bruce Lee, Kung Fu, Karate Joe, or Kung Fu Joe. You know, Steve James, who played in those ninja movies, you know, he played in that one parody, right, where he played Kung Fu Joe. That was hilarious, because that was based on the guys from the early 70s, man, who used to run around the neighborhoods like that. So we had a lot of fun with that, man. It was awesome, man. What times, I'm telling you, what times. So, yeah. Let's see. Ronald Finkley says, great show today. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that, man. Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens is laughing. He says, yo, there used to be a bunch of folks with them karate shoes and people would never test them cats. Yeah, man. See, that's the thing, too. You know, Kung Fu, you know, guys who knew karate and stuff, didn't nobody mess with them too much, because back then, you didn't know what karate really was. You knew it was punching and kicking, but when guys get to yelling and screaming and grunting and all that stuff, it kind of put fear in you a little bit, you know. And, you know, now it's like people laugh, you know, Kung Fu, whatever. Yeah, right. But back then, man, somebody break out with some kung fu, man, you will leave them alone. You be like, I ain't messing with that fool. You know what I mean? That's how it used to be, bro. Big time. Ronald Finkley says, yes, indeed. Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owen says, I appreciate you answering that question about what attracted our people to Kung Fu flicks. He says, it makes sense now. Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. You know, Stormy B, man, ain't out here, man, just living, Reggie. You understand? I've taken in life, bro. And when I talk about things and I talk about them at depth and everything, it's because I've absorbed life. You understand? I haven't just been a person passing times by and zooted out and high. You understand? I've been paying attention. And one of the things that I have a problem with is how our people have fallen away from sensibility, because back then, people, even when they didn't have much, they bonded together. Today, people don't have much and still don't want to bond. They want to take what you got. They don't respect you. They don't give a damn about you. Listen, man, a couple of years back here in Chicago, a woman during holiday season around Christmas time, she got hit by a car. Okay? I'm telling you a story here for a reason, to justify what I'm saying or to substantiate my point. She was crossing the main street here in Chicago, Madison, on the west side. She was struck by an automobile, and she laid in the street as she was expiring because the car hit her that bad that it killed her. They had to post the woman's morgue picture. She had no ID on her or anything. They posted her face on the news that night. But the worst part of it, man, when she was laying there in distress, instead of somebody calling for an ambulance and stuff for her, man, there were people over there robbing her, taking her packages, taking everything. That's why they didn't find no ID on the lady, because they took her wallet, they took the gifts and bags that she had. She had been shopping, and they took everything from her. And they basically left her laying in the street on a cold winter's evening that she had been out shopping, and she was hit by a car. What a tragic thing. What if that was one of your loved ones? If that was your mom trying to come home with Christmas presents for you and your brothers and sisters? Or if that was your wife, huh? Or if that was your auntie or sister? This was just a few years ago. It's that type of thing, man, that I'm talking about. It's that type of thing. What the hell is wrong with our people, man? So when I get on here and I talk about these films, I'm reminiscing on times when we were a different state of mind people, where we were a different people to embrace culture and to embrace something new and different, and also to carry something from your childhood, because I'm old enough that was a part of my childhood, that I could talk about it as an adult and share it with you guys that love this kind of fare as well. That's why I'm out here. I'm not just wasting my time, I don't think. Not with the 19 people that came in and they were smashing the like button for me and giving me PayPal donations and saying, great show. I think that everybody that's been able to enjoy this that I'm sharing, it means something to you. It means something to me. You know what I mean? Walter Wilder says Hong Kong stuntmen and actors were not white heroes fighting against imperialism. Bruce's first student was a black man named Jesse Glover. He passed about 5 years ago. Yes, he did, and I'm familiar with that story, brother. Derek Bailey says, you do have a lot of knowledge, Walter Wilder. Ronald Finkley says, our uncles and aunts came through that racist 60s and 70s. Appreciate them for taking pride in something. Walter Wilder says, thanks, Derry. Derek Bailey says, you beat me to it, Stormy, but you could see 4 or 5 movies for $2. Exactly, man. Exactly. That's what it was back in those days, man. And he says, yeah, Steve James died of cancer. Yes, he did, unfortunately. Hustler Slim says, Stormy B, man, you remember Black Belt Jones? I certainly do, man. It's one of my favorite films from the 70s, man. How about that soundtrack? The Black Belt Jones, man. It had a groovy soundtrack, man. Jim Kelly. Hey, I always said Jim Kelly had the best afro of any brother in the movies, man. It was perfectly shaped at all times and everything. That brother had a hell of an afro, man. I always wanted the Jim Kelly type afro. Not that big old round afro like the Jacksons had, but that nice one with the shape that Jim Kelly had, man. Jim Kelly was a cool brother, man. He was a cool brother, man. Walter Wilder says, Kung Fu films plus black vets training, the Black Power movement, street warriors in the 70s. Groups like Professor Maulana Karenga and group have martial arts wing called Simba, who were too. J1 Pro says, man, that's pitiful. Yeah, that story I just told, J1 Pro, absolutely, man. It is absolutely pitiful. Reggie Owen says, sick shit. Shout out to 79 says that's messed up. Derek Bailey says, yeah, that's fucked up. And Ronald Finkley says, wow, that's simply a sad thing, bro. Walter Wilder says, training under a karate master from Compton. Sorry about that. Gil Cole says, if somebody run up on me with some real kung fu, I'm going to have to shoot him. I'm not taking no kung fu ass whooping. No, Gil Coles, what you do is, after he whoop your ass, then you have to tell him, you have to say, you must be my teacher. I want to learn from you, so I can learn that style. That's what they do in the movies. They get their ass whooped and they say, please be my teacher after that, So, yeah. Derek Bailey, laugh out loud. Facts about Jim Kelly, Afro Stormy. Yeah, man, that brother had the nicest afro in entertainment, man. Jim Kelly. That brother had a hell of an afro, man. Ricky Samuel says, I remember Black Belt Jones. Drew Titan says, remember the scene where dude threw... Wait a minute, it's jumped on me just now. Oh, you retracted it. That's why it jumped. Drew, I was trying to read your comment just as you retracted it. And Ronald Finkley says, Jim Kelly was that dude that played in Highlander, right? Man, Ronald Finkley, Jim Kelly was in Into the Dragon, man. The brother in Into the Dragon. Man, Ronald Finkley, man, somebody kick Ronald Finkley in the chest, man, for saying that shit, man. Ricky Samuels is laughing. Drew Titan says, okay, you wrote it again. He says, remember that scene in Black Belt Jones where dude threw the kid and he landed on the trampoline and bounced through the ceiling head first? Yeah, man. And do you remember Drew in Black Belt Jones when they came into the karate school and they wanted to mess with old Pops? And they was like, man, when Eric Lanaville said, you have to take your shoes off. It's a show of respect. And old boy looked at him and said, man, don't give me no communist shit. And he knocked the boy out. Man, I want to go watch Black Belt Jones right now, man. You guys got me thinking about this movie, man. That movie is awesome. Black Belt Jones. It's one of the ones from the 70s that's the best, dude. It's one of the best. That movie right there. And I'm still thinking about Ron Finkley saying the dude in Highlander, get out of here, man. Talking like that. That's disrespectful. How you gonna come up here, come at us like that, man? Shh, man. Yeah, and then in Black Belt Jones, Scatman Crothers played Pops, the owner of the karate school. Remember that? In bed with that big old woman. Scatman Crothers, man. Oh, man, you brothers y'all got me laughing, man, reminiscing on these Kung Fu films. Got me reminiscing on these films, man. That's some great stuff, man. That's great stuff. Yeah. Shadow 979 is laughing. Ron Finkley's laughing, saying, my bad. Oh, man. Ricky Samuel said, you must be my teacher. Yeah. Gil Coles is laughing and rolling. Hustler Sim is laughing at Ronald Finkley. Hustler Sim said, Stormy B, man, I started something, didn't I? Yeah, man, you started some mess with that one, man. Straight up started some mess, bro. Shadow 979 says, come on, Brother Finkley, man. Yeah, y'all better slip him out the back door before this show ends, man. He gonna get his. J1 Pro says, I'm thinking about the white karate guy. Laugh out loud. Drew Titan says, I remember the scenes with the lights. Yeah, turn the lights off every 5 seconds. And then he says, every time the lights came on, he was kicking someone's ass. And he said, he had on the pimp hat when the lights came on out of nowhere. Yeah, man. And then when he told old boy, he said, hey, it's too dark in here. Set the dogs loose. Them niggas started jumping through glass and everything to get out of the karate school. Because, you know, niggas don't like no dogs. Oh, man. Oh, man. Yeah, bro. And Walter Wilder says, Mr. Kelly was a pioneer for black martial artists in Hong Kong movies. People like Samuel Smalls, Carl Scott, Ron Van Cleef. And J1 Pro says, laugh out loud at Ronald Finkley. You all good, family. Yeah, man. You brothers have been great this evening, man. I'm going to tell you, I've gone a little bit over my time, but I had to kick it with you guys and laugh about this. This has been a great show. Listen, man, I appreciate everybody who came out to rock with Stormy B, man, this evening for this Kung Fu film joint. We got a chance to reminisce and talk about these Kung Fu joints, man. And we got a new brother out there, Walter Wilder, who's come in. Maybe next time he'll come back with some more stuff to throw in the chat to keep the conversation flowing. I like when people know about the Kung Fu films, and then they could, you know, share with us and everything, you know. So, yeah, but this has been great, man. I want to say thanks again to every one of you brothers that came out and sisters that came out. Miss Boxing was out there. And I want to say thank you guys for that. Shout out to the LDBC. And keep an eye out for the Friday night chop session, which is my boxing show. And In the Eye of the Storm, which is coming next Saturday, I believe we'll have a new guest for this coming Saturday. And I just want to say thanks to everybody, man. You guys make this, you make me feel it's worth the while. You know, I had a good time with you brothers and sisters this evening. So this is Stormy B, man. I'm going to sign off for now. I appreciate everybody. I hope everybody have a good holiday. Don't eat too much. Don't drink too much. Do everything in moderation and save some space for some Kung Fu films, because they out there and I'm going to be watching them too. And maybe you will. All right, this is Stormy B Man, and I'm going to say peace to you all. Good night. Two coming.